Hey there, and welcome back to the Resilient Rainer podcast, where we dive deep into the heart of horsemanship and the minds behind it. I'm your host, Nicole Burnett, and today we're exploring the intersection of tradition and innovation in the equine world. Joining us is James Dexter, a lifelong horseman continuing a multi generational legacy in equine breeding and ranching. As the owner of 50 Horse Ranch in Nevada, James has witnessed firsthand the challenges trainers face in balancing the demands of their craft with running a business. Recognizing the need for a solution, James combined his deep rooted passion for horses with professional expertise to create Stable Pro, a comprehensive business management platform designed specifically for horse trainers. Stable Pro aims to alleviate the administrative burdens that trainers encounter, allowing them to focus on what they do best, training horses and nurturing their program. This fits so well with everything we talk about on this podcast and in the work I do with alleviating that mental load so that you can just ride your horse. In this episode, we'll discuss the inspiration behind Stable Pro and how it's transforming the way trainers are managing their business, whether you are a seasoned competitor or just a dedicated horse enthusiast. This conversation offers valuable insight into enhancing efficiency and just reducing mental clutter in the equine industry, which I am all about. So saddle up and join us as we explore how James Dexter is helping trainers and their clients regain control of their time and energy, one streamlined process at a time.
Welcome to the Resilient Rainer, the premier podcast focused on mental performance for equestrians and improved horse show performance. Whether you're a rookie reiner or a seasoned competitor, this show is for riders who want to take their skills to the next level and achieve their full potential in the show ring. I'm Nicole Burnett, and I'm a master mindset coach who's obsessed with helping you achieve all those horse dreams you always thought were impossible. Join me each week to develop a show-ready mindset and gain the competitive edge you need to compete with confidence.
I will admit, when I found out what James Dexter was doing for the horse industry, I was so thrilled to have him on the podcast because personally, as a client of trainers, I am all about having clear systems and I want more trainers to adopt this. As a mental performance coach, I deeply understand the impact that mental clutter and the mental load has on your performance as a rider and in everything. If you are ready to take the next step as a rider, you need to come join us in 5 days to Confident Competitor. It is 5 days, 5 audios, only $33, and we're going to stop the show nerves and saddle up with swagger. If you have ever been stuck in the arena and frustrated by your own self-doubt and show nerves, this is for you. I'm so grateful to welcome to the podcast today, James Dexter. I know that you have shared with me that your family has this multi-generational involvement in equine breeding and ranching. And so why don't you share a little bit about your background with horses and how that influenced your own journey, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on, Nicole. So, I honestly, I'm still kind of just that ranch kid and grew up out in the middle of nowhere in northern Nevada, a place called Orvada, Nevada. We raised horses forever. And before horses, we did a lot of mules. But as we aged and started to get out there and do stuff, my parents got us into the show circuit and got us at least experiencing, and that's where I developed actually quite a bit of a passion for the reining uh, pen. And ultimately, once I went away to school and came back and started the process of building my own ranch and getting my own breeding program set up and raising some nice horses of my own, I started putting them with trainers. And one of them being Casey Deary has one of my horses right now. And I'm super excited for that one. But back to the point is, I just kept seeing trainers struggle with some of the same things, whether it was one of my local trainers here or even up into the big name trainers. And so I figured I'd start trying to tackle some of those problems. And out of that was kind of born what became Stable Pro.
Well, and so for our listeners, so James has created Stable Pro. And if I were to summarize it, it would be that you've created a product that trainers can use that helps them run the business of training horses. So they can do things like send invoices, accept credit card payments, make notes about each horse if they, have medications or things that add to their invoice, communicate with your assistants and things like that. So it kind of streamlines the business part. Would that be a accurate description?
Yeah, that's basically how I describe it. Is it's your all-in-one business tool
Yeah.
for specifically catering to the horse trainer. And really, I've taken and distilled out exactly what horse trainers are telling me and brought it to my development team. And we've worked very closely with trainers to create a product that actually works well for trainers. Whether you want to automate your invoices so you don't have to worry about getting them out on time, whether you want to set up your lesson schedules, clinics, events, you can even build out entire trips and set up where you're going, automatically track mileage, all of these things that you do on your regular day to day basis. We make it easy.
Now, I love it because I've been with different barns where sometimes it's super organized. I remember I had one lady, and she was way ahead of her time because this was 15, 20 years ago, and she would send out invoices and you could PayPal her to pay, and she was super on top of it, and she really like spoiled me. And then I've been other places where it's like, I don't know, just give me cash on Friday and it's good enough. And so it's like I've experienced a lot of different ways of running your business, from the client side. But I also know that this is a very niche product. Like it's really neat, but it's very niche. Is there anything in particular that really just pushed you over the edge that you were just like, I want to tackle this?
Well, and this probably segues into some of the things that you talk about frequently is I was watching Nicole at some of the shows, who
Hmm.
is Casey's wife, and just is completely swamped with having to take care of everybody's invoices. And rather than enjoying herself and being able to cheer on Casey, she's worried about getting up and invoicing everything. And so that's where really this was kind of born out of, is eliminating that and making it a lot easier. But then eventually, when I started working with some other trainers locally, I would get invoices. They text it to me in the middle of the night because they just finished putting it together and be scribbled out on by hand on a piece of paper and just be a picture of it. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way we can do this. And I thought it would be a lot easier than it ended up being, but we sure did create a pretty cool product.
Yeah. It's one of those things that it reminds me of is just, I think of the mental load. And as a mom, that's something that I heard about years before, not in this context, but it's the idea of like, oh my gosh, when are the kids' sport practices? Do I need to change the laundry? What do I need to defrost the chicken? Like, there's all these things that are running in the background that completely like are just soaking up all your time and energy. And so it's hard to do other things. I actually have a master class that I've done with my clients that I call the Everything But Training Your Horse Masterclass. And we go over, hey, here's a list of 101 things that before you go to the horse show, you need to deal with this. Because even things like, hey, have you checked the tread on your trailer tires to like, you need that Coggins. Like, you don't have to do it the week before you show. You could put it on your calendar for January and then it's not stressful. And
Yeah.
so it's just all of these things. And I've had a lot of feedback where it's like, oh my gosh, all of that makes so much sense, but I've never had it laid out for me before because it really does free up your mental bandwidth. So then you go to the show and you're like, yeah, I can just ride my horse because everything's taken care of. And so when I heard about what you were doing, I was like, yes, this is the same idea of taking this mental load off the trainer so that it's not just another thing weighing on you at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you brought up the Coggins because that's one of the things that
Yeah.
I am super excited about. We built in so that either you or your client can load to the horse's profile Coggins, health certificates, all those things. So you're headed to a horse show. You don't have to worry about where you put it. It's all right there. And you just at a click of a button can pull it up super easy.
Ah, that's really cool. Do you have any favorite part about it that, something that surprised you or something that you were like, yes, I've been waiting for
My
this?
favorite my favorite feature overall has been the trips feature, and it's partly because we put so much thought into how to do this, and I
Mhm.
interviewed a bunch of different trainers and had to kind of create some best practices out of it, which is basically saying this is how realistically we should be doing things. And now we distilled that down and created the trips feature, which can then you just simply take and select the horses that you're going to bring and drop them right into your trip. You select where you're going to go, and it'll automatically calculate the mileage to get there and add it to the horses. And then whatever you have to add on there, whether it's show expenses, if you're bringing along help, uh,
Mhm.
hotel rooms, anything, you just add it on there. It divides it up appropriately amongst the horses, and once you hit send, you can add it to the client's regular bill or just send it to them directly, and it has everything invoiced for them to see exactly what happened at the show, what their money is going to. And that's difficult to do on the fly when you're actually at a show
Yeah.
if you don't have something keeping it organized.
No, it is. And like I said, from the client perspective, I know I've talked to some of my friends too, and it's just it can be stressful on the client end when you're like, when am I getting this invoice? What is included? Like, it can feel frustrating when it's just it feels like this, box out of the hat, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
and so it's nice to feel like, oh, I understand, because a lot of times it's not a resistance to paying. It's just like, I don't know, just feel like they just made something up, right? And so it feels nice to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I understand. Like, that's nice.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about it is if your client's worried about what this might cost and it might be a little bit hesitant about sending their horse, you can add their horse to it and it'll automatically calculate what they would owe at the end of the show. And you can tell them, well, this is approximately how much it's going to cost, give or take a little bit, but it gives them a much better idea of what to expect.
And that's really helpful because especially when people have been doing it for, a long time, they know what it costs to go to the shows. They understand how to budget. But especially when, you're new to a program or you're new to that kind of showing, you're like, I have no idea. My husband wants to know what it's going to cost. And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. So it's nice to be able to even have some of those kind of ballpark figures of just, yeah, okay, here's
Yeah.
that.
And being able to communicate that to the client makes it so that your relationship with them, there's a lot less tension. You
Yeah.
can go into the horse show knowing that you're not having to worry about things because they already know what to expect. And that's another load off your shoulders when you go to actually step in that show pen.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's very nice to know ahead of time. Like you understand that there's some variation because life, but it's nice to have an idea of, as a client, you're like, oh, I have a rough idea of what this show costs and that fits in my budget instead of like, well, I signed up to go and I just brought an open credit card. I feel a little, it's, very stressful trying to show if that's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So that's really neat. Have you, I'm curious the sorts of things people have highlighted, either trainers from their perspective or what they say their clients have noticed in terms of, because things I'm thinking of are just burnout, one, where whether it's the, trainer or their partner, whoever is running the books, because it's not always the same person, or things like just the, being able to dedicate more time to the horses.
Yeah, and that's funny that you bring up that. Um, I pitch it all the time to the trainer, and they love the idea
Yeah.
and sign up, and nothing would happen because they're busy. But when I realized that, I actually made one of the first steps when they're onboarding is they would add their business manager or their spouse a lot of times. And then that person would be able to continue the process and actually add the horses' profiles and set everything up for them, and they didn't have to worry about it. So that took off a lot of stress from the trainer in the first part.
Yeah.
But what I've gotten for feedback from this so frequently is it's just absolutely game changing for how trainers are doing things. Now, some trainers do really like to have a program that's like QuickBooks, that's in depth and lays out, like they have to really clock every single detail. In this, I've tried to focus on keeping things simple so that trainers can go on there, they can run through the barn and just tap, 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 done. So there's some simplicity that you won't get in a huge program like, well, of course, Stable Pro, but um, like QuickBooks. But that's all done to make the trainer's life that much easier. So back to your question, the trainers really their feedback and the changes that it's made in their life is it's just revolutionized their whole billing system and making it that much easier.
I feel like you'd be saving marriages here with this a little bit.
Yeah. And it's
The
nice because
unspoken feedback.
as we as we go, we're constantly iterating and making things better based on trainer feedback. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we're working towards and we'll have in there soon is you'll be able to remind clients. And so instead of the wife constantly hounding the trainer to tell that client to pay, they can just simply hit the button and it'll automatically remind the client. And that's a big one that I see frequently is the wife always, can you tell so and so they need to get caught up?
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's just a lot of bringing horse business and bringing the Western industry into the modern century. And so it's how can we make that as easy as possible? I know it's nice to be able to automate payments, and it just is another thing you never have to worry about.
Yeah.
And
And
so being able to bring that to people is really neat.
it is, and it's definitely a challenge too, because the equine industry as a whole is relatively untouched by technology
Yeah.
compared to every other sector. So taking this on, I knew all ahead of time it was kind of an uphill battle, but at the same time, I signed up to do it because I could see the absolute need for it.
Yeah.
And I could basically picked up an extra job so I could pay for building it myself and keep the trainer fees down as much as possible. And oh, it's worked out real well.
I think it's only gonna grow more too because it's stuff like for my hey guy, he only wants cash, no Venmo, no nothing, just cash. And
Yeah,
so we do cash, that's great. But I know that the more like my kids don't like they don't understand or believe about, like mommy and daddy grew up before there was internet and they're just like, what? They don't get it. And so I can just see that the more.
we didn't used to have cell phones that we
Yeah,
carried.
they're like
ev-
I literally earlier today, my daughter, my teenager, she's asking about the difference between THO and THOUGH, right? Like why do we have these differences? Why are they different in texting? And I was pulling back from my brain and explaining how we didn't used to have iPhones. We used to have these little bricks and you didn't have letters. You only had numbers on your phone and you'd have to be like click, click, like each number was three different letters and you had to very tediously go through. to text somebody and you'd want
Yeah.
it's very expensive and you wanted to use the minimum number of letters and blah blah
They
blah.
charge you for every single text that you sent.
Oh my gosh. So for the longest time, I literally didn't even have texting because I was like, that's too expensive. I don't need that. But I can see like the changes happening that the more people grow up because people still want horses. And so these kids are going to grow up and they're going to be like, what do you mean I can't like Apple Cash you my payment? Like, why, you know, what's going on? Like, I think it'll really drive just people are used to different standards.
Yeah. One of the things I'm super excited with this is we're starting to explore creating a version that is developed more for the educational purposes and putting it in the hands of people learning how to manage a barn and manage a training program and getting them experience and showing them how to do stuff correctly. And uh, we're, I think that'll help the industry a lot just as an from an educational point.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, are you really focused on, or do you find that how much is your client base Western industry versus horse? Because I've noticed there's a lot of siloing. Like we're all, horses, but like dressage people are not hunter jumper, are not reiners, are not rodeo. Like, what have you noticed anything there?
That's a great question. I'm trying to make it completely neutral, which is
Hmm.
impossible because I live in the West and experienced a life growing up in the West. And so I have a Western style of riding and approach to everything I do with horses. But I'm constantly, just like I'm interacting with the Western trainers, I'm interacting with some amazing English trainers as well. And getting feedback on them and building in things into the lessons features because the lessons feature is a lot heavier on the English side with
Hmm.
clinicians there versus the Western side. I mean, of course, they both do lessons, but I find that the English side has much higher demand for that feature.
Hmm.
So we're really kind of trying to tailor things to fit across the board. And I mean, if you go to the website, you see a lot more of the Western side of things just because that's what my experience is. But I don't want it to necessarily exclude anyone. I want it to be completely open to the racers, the
Hmm.
English hunters, hunter jumpers, everything. I tend to have a lot more of the cow horse and cutters on there and a few
Hmm.
trainers.
Do you find that they're more open to embracing more modern tools, or I'm just very curious what that might be?
Not necessarily. A lot of these, it's their first time experiencing something, or they've maybe tried a couple of little things, but not
Yeah.
like it. Now they found Stable Pro and are really enjoying the
Yeah.
app. But the English side, I think there are a lot more tools that have been built and catered to specifically the equine industry versus the Western side. There's very little that has been developed in
Hmm.
regard to the to reining, cutting,
Yeah.
our working cow horse stuff.
Well, this is all assuming that, you know, stable management is evolving. So, where do you see the future of equine business management heading?
Well, we're going to eventually see, and it's going to make everything a lot more transparent between the trainer and the client uh,
Hmm.
in the facility. And so, what we really want to see is Stable Pro is right now the app that the trainer can get on there and they have their portal that they can load everything on and manage their horses, manage their barns. That the client can also log on to their portal and they can see all their horses that are in that program. And so there'll be a lot more transparency as the industry as a whole matures and embraces more of the technology side of things. But we'll be able to grow that to the point where clients, if they're doing stuff on their own, whether a client is a farrier or a client does other things, they'll be able to build out their profiles
Hmm.
to manage that type of stuff. So as people get more accustomed to the actually using the technology, we're going to build that in and continue to evolve this. If you'd asked me a few months ago what it would look like, I had one answer, but as I've gotten people involved and started to see how people used it, we've had to kind of be fluid with where we went with it, so that rather than producing one thing and hoping it hit, we can tailor this to fit the industry perfectly as we grow it.
Oh yeah, and all about being responsive. I'm in the middle of updating some of my, because I do one-on-one work, but my courses, my pre-recorded courses, because working with people, I've realized, oh, a lot of people really need, like they need this, and so I'm like, I need to redo my structure so that we're meeting them where they're at. Like this is the
Yeah,
point. So
absolutely. And then you get
yeah,
them there and you realize, oh, this is kind of the next natural step for them to take.
yeah,
And before you know it, you've created a whole new path there.
yep. So, what has been the most surprising lesson since you've launched Stable Pro? What's kind of one of the new things that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, but here we are?
Oh man, let's see. Well, I mean, kind of the one of the things, like I was saying, is I had drawn all this up in on note cards that completely covered my bed
Mhm,
and had little strings attaching every little detail. And I thought I had mapped out the perfect solution to what it was going to be. And I was like, okay, this is exactly what we have to build. And had I done that, first of all, it would have cost a ridiculous amount of money to build it and turn it directly into an app would have been absurd. And then secondly, I would have completely missed the mark. Instead, and like I was just saying, we built it based on trainer feedback.
mhm,
What I did was I launched it, and it's the MVP version, the minimal viable product, which was it did some basic, most fundamental invoicing that you could do.
mhm,
And we got a couple trainers on there, and they were so patient because they had to put up with a terrible time for a little while. And every week we were iterating and getting a new update out and improving it and getting all these features out and fixing things. And so when we launched end of February, early March of 2024, almost every week we had a new update until things got a little more complex towards the end of the year and it started taking a little bit longer. But now, just over a year later, we have a fully functional product that works very well for trainers.
mhm.
And had we just gone and dumped into funding to build that, would have been so far off the mark, it would have just been a joke.
The surprising lesson is just that you thought you were going to build one thing and you sort of ended up building something else, but you like it a lot more.
Yeah. And really, the surprising lesson is how important it was to transition from thinking basically I knew what the industry needed to finding and figuring it out with the trainers involved.
Yep.
Yeah, and because I wouldn't have been able to build this without the critical feedback of a lot of the trainers that have given me advice and feedback this entire time.
Yep. Well, I'm glad they have.
Yeah,
How has developing Stable Pro, how has that influenced your perspective on the equine industry as a whole?
it's made me so much more excited for, I mean, it's gotten me more involved and gotten me out of my shell because I was still this Nevada ranch kid and
Yeah.
it, I'd go to some occasional shows and occasionally some big shows, but I really wasn't interacting with the industry as a whole. I had barely even used Facebook, much less connected with thousands and thousands of people on Facebook now. So it's taken and gotten me well beyond anything I had ever imagined. And I'm excited for seeing where the industry's going. And one of the things is it step by step got me more involved with AQHA, where I was able to actually go to the convention this year and had an amazing time networking with people, but also seeing how much that your regular person, by showing up and getting involved, can make a difference in the horse industry as a whole. That was one of the biggest things that I took away from that is it doesn't matter how big or small you are, you can go and have your voice heard. You can sit in committees and meetings and make decisions.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's really I think that's always a good thing for folks to hear because it's easy to think that, decision makers or other people, they're out there, they don't care about you instead of realizing, no, you
Yeah, uh,
you can get involved, you can be a part of things, and you can shape what happens.
yeah. The AQHA was always just where we sent our paperwork in to get it registered and make
Yeah.
transfers, and that was it. But like actually see, actually vote on rule changes and go in there, and there's some hot topics like the 2-year rule with passed away stallions. You can go in there, sit and actually listen to these debates. And granted, the committee members have the authority to be chiming in, but you can have conversations with those committee members and really get involved.
That's awesome. No, that just that too is I think so important for, like I said, for people to hear that, yeah, you can go, you can be a part of everything, and that even if you're not the voters, that you can still have those conversations.
Yeah. And they're just real people right there.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience because I got to go to the Pro Horseman, which was
Mhm.
UHA Pro Horseman Academy that they put on. And then from there, they invited me to come and join the convention, or
Mhm.
just kind of insisted you need to come and actually get involved and see some
Yeah.
people. Okay, I'll come down. Plus, I live in Nevada. It was just a little 6-hour drive to go to Vegas where they held it this year.
Well, I think that about wraps up all of my questions. Yeah. If you are hearing this and you think that your trainer should use Stable Pro because you want to benefit as the client, then you can check out where can they find your stuff.
So you can find us at stablepro.us. We have all of our social media, Instagram, StablePro, Facebook, StablePro, and you can personally look me up and shoot me questions. I'm James Dexter, or I guess Farmer Dexter on Instagram if you want to reach directly out to me.
Mhm.
I love hearing feedback from both the trainers and the clients because a big part of this has been building in features for the clients as well. So, no matter who you are, I want to hear from you. I want to connect with you and build something to really make the industry better as a whole.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been my pleasure to meet you and have you on. I wish you just all the best with Stable Pro.
Thank you, Nicole. It was really great to meet you too.
If you are all in on clearing the mental clutter for better rides, come and join us in 5 days to Confident Competitor. This is my targeted $33 audio coaching just for Western riders to stop the show nerves and saddle up with swagger. 5 days, 5 audios, big shift. I can't wait to see you in.